from, we translated the east, it actually says it came from the rising of the sun. There was a place in the perimeter of the horizon called the rising. I like it. It's just very graphic to me. It's the place of the rising. It was the place from which every new day came. It was the rising. And the Magi came from the rising with news of a rising star, drawing attention to the fact that others may not have noticed that in the sky, in the night sky, there was another rising. And as I shared with the children, I hope you were listening, it wasn't just for them. There was this sense that the heavens portend. You could look to the heavens. Among the Magi, they believed you could look to the heavens for predictions about events that were going to happen in the affairs of human beings. The rising of a star from what they called their rising. When the people of the east looked east, they had their own rising, and they said they saw a star come up from the rising. And for them, it meant something big was about to happen, a new leader in the world. So the Magi came looking for this one whose sign was in the sky. It is a strange and unexpected beginning of the life of Jesus. No matter what you make of Jesus, no matter who you think he is today, bear with me as you listen to Matthew describe the strangeness, the coming together, the mixing of things together that don't belong together, the upside down and inside out way in which things happen that we become so familiar with. But listen again with me, if you will, as if we've never heard it. It was a strange and unexpected beginning of the life of Jesus. He was a Jew through and through, born in Bethlehem, a Jewish village, and living in Judea on the wrong side of the tracks. Every village has them. Every place has them. The place where the people who cannot keep up, the people who do not keep pace, can go and find a little enclave where they protect themselves. It was the place where the people who didn't belong with the rest of the people lived. And this was the area of Bethlehem. It was the area really of that part of Nazareth and Judea. It was the place where people of no account lived. There is a strangeness to it. We become familiar with it. But it is very strange that the Magi would come looking for one who was so important that there would be a portent in the sky, and that as if you would expect to find that one there. Never. Never. I couldn't help it while I was writing this. I apologize. You'll probably say, okay, well, that has nothing to do with it, Lou, but Laura and I went to see Into the Woods. You know, we become familiar with that story of how the prince is looking for a wife and can't find a wife among all the women. I want to know what in the world was wrong with all the rest of the women. And so he's got to go to the cinder wench, to the one who cleans out the fireplaces. We become so familiar with the story, we miss that sometimes in life that is how it happens. And when you're living it, we like to think that the stepmother and her daughters were such terribly small-minded people. What I want to remind you of is that they are the way we think. That is us. We are always underestimating the people that we see as lower than us, the people who are beyond our range of understanding. We are always like that, and so yes, I'm going to come back and argue there is a fit for the sermon. The Magi came and they kept walking. They walked past all the eligible ones, all the children who might have been born. They kept walking. They walked through the rich neighborhoods. They walked through the places of power. They walked and walked and walked till they came to the least likely place. It's a strange and unexpected beginning in Judea on the wrong side of the tracks, but the story is filled with strange omens and signs. Bear with me. Jewish people, Hebrew people, it is in many places throughout the Old Testament, through what we call the Old Testament, through the Hebrew Scriptures, Jewish people were required never to consult with the likes of the Magi. Never. They were the necromancers. They were the scientists. They are the precursors of those who put the Bible, the Hebrew book, aside and say, I'm going to find out for myself. And so they look to the stars, they look into the earth, they look everywhere, and people say to them, they were accused of this, they were accused of being people who were looking for signs of God, but they looked in the sky and they looked in the earth, they looked into the chemistry and the biochemistry, but they were accused of never seeing God right in front of their face. That's how religious people criticized them. That the Magi would be the ones who would come. It's like having Christopher Hitchens. Right? Isn't that the guy? It's like having Christopher Hitchens come looking for Jesus in the manger. They were the antithesis of the people of faith. The Magi were people that the people of faith would have nothing to do with. Listen, what the scholars say, they were the intelligentsia. They were the wise ones, the wealthy ones. They wrote horoscopes from looking at the stars, and they were treated as people who looked for signs in the heaven but ignored the work of God in front of their eyes. They were the ones from whom God hid the really big secrets and revealed them to the little one. There's a passage of scripture in the Psalms that says, I thank you, O God, that you have hid the wise and deep secrets from the intelligent, and you have shared them with the little one. These are unsettling, disturbing events in the beginning as told by Matthew. Some will tell the story of 3 kings who came. But my friends, there are only 2 kings in the story. There are only 2 kings. There are no mention of kings in the rest of the story. And the most important king never got on his knees in front of Jesus. There were 2 kings. There was Jesus, called the King of the Jews by the Magi. That's who they said he was. And then there was Herod, the king who lied about his interest to bring gifts and worship his newborn competition. If you want to read, you can read more. Herod is the first figure in the Bible for which there is a lot of contemporary historical information. Herod was a real man who lived in the real time, and actually they argue less about the existence of Herod than they do about the existence of Jesus. Let me tell you about Herod. He was insane. 2/3 of the way through his time as the king in Jerusalem, he had such an enormous need to protect and keep his power. He murdered half of his family. Anyone who looked like they might be seeking to become the next king, Herod murdered them, poisoned them, had them murdered. And he had a big family. When he thought they were going to replace him, and then imagine his panic when he heard that there had been in the heavens a star, something he believed nothing about, that portended that a child was born. He wasted no time. He approximated, he did a calculation from the time of the approximate birth based on what he learned from the Magi and their belief in the star, and he knew the approximate location in Nazareth by reading his own Hebrew scriptures, and thereby he ordered that all of the children in the area under the age of 2 be put to death. Herod the king of the Jews. And Matthew throws in a slight to the people who were living in Jerusalem, because he says it was Herod who became afraid and all the people of Jerusalem. You see, when you're under Roman occupation, you have to decide whether you're going to stand and hold on to your separate identity as children of Abraham and Sarah, or whether you're going to throw in and find your survival in trying to make peace with the Roman emperor. And Herod threw in with the Roman emperor. The Roman emperor said, "I am God." And Herod said, "You're right, you are, as long as you keep me king." And so all the people of Jerusalem, Matthew says, they had all joined in together with Herod. And so when the wise men came and spoke of a new leader, the whole city of Jerusalem was guilty as well. It is a strange, unsettling, disturbing story as it is told by Matthew. Herod and the people of Jerusalem, listen to me. These two things do not belong together in a sentence. Herod, the king of the Jews, the children of Abraham and Sarah, and all the people of Jerusalem were acting a lot like Pharaoh. They behaved like Pharaoh in the ancient story of Moses and the Exodus. Even more strange and unsettling, the events around the birth of the child. Matthew says that when Herod sought to kill the child in the same way that Pharaoh ordered all the children dead in order to protect his own power. You see, Matthew is trying to say, how can it be? How can it be that we, the children of Abraham and Sarah, have become our enemy? We have become the opposite of what we were called to be. We have become the one that we feared. Do you understand that in the life of every Hebrew in the first century, their story, when you ask a Hebrew child their story, they started like this. They said, "My story began in a faraway land in Egypt, where there was a terrible Pharaoh who kept my people in captivity. And God, after many years of our praying, released us from captivity and led us toward freedom." And the trajectory of every Hebrew's life is this: ahead of me is freedom and liberation, and behind me is the oppression of Herod and of Egypt. This is how I understand my life. Every year in Passover, the story was rehearsed and the children learned again that we are on a journey out of Egypt and away from oppression, away from injustice, and that we are being led toward freedom. And along with us, we will bring everybody, because the whole human race needs freedom. We need justice. We need love. And so when Matthew tells us that there has been a strange twist in the story, and that the deliverers have become the oppressors, and the oppressors no longer recognize the deliverers, there is something very broken, not in the lives of the Hebrew children, but Matthew is now talking about a cosmic gospel that explains that there is something broken in the hearts of human beings in general. It cannot be that Herod, the leader of the people of Abraham and Sarah, orders that all of the children be dead. It's a strange and disturbing story. Here's one more part. If you followed me up until now, you'll get this. The Magi said to Mary and Joseph, "We had a dream." And every good Jewish woman like Mary knew, don't ever listen to a Magi who tells you a dream. They said, "We had a dream, and you need to get up, and you need to get out of here." And do you know where they went? You know where they found shelter? Do you know into whose arms they went, seeking refuge, sanctuary? Some of you are nodding your heads. They went to Egypt. They went to Egypt. Jesus lived the first years of his life under the protection of Pharaoh. Understand, my friends, this is not anti-Semitism. This is not against the people of Abraham and Sarah. This is an unfolding, a revealing of the hearts of human beings. This is what we do. we do. How amazing. Matthew is writing it. It's between every line. Matthew is shocked as a Jew to discover in the story as he's researching it that Mary and Joseph took the child and they flew to Egypt, of all places. Egypt represented everything that is bad in life. Everything that comes along when you least expect it. Egypt was a bad place where bad rulers lived who would enslave you and kill you. And they went to Egypt and found safety. Matthew is saying, are you listening to this? So what can we learn? Here's the amazing part of this story. The Magi found Christ by means of a star. My friends, what Matthew is trying to say is, there are many and varied ways to God. Many and varied ways to God. No Hebrew person would ever have been able to say that. This is Matthew post-Jesus. This is Matthew with the effect and the washing over of Jesus having changed his life. This is Matthew the Jew open to Matthew, the child of God living in the world. And Matthew is hearing the story and realizing that the things that Jesus came to understand, who talked about the love of God for all people, no respecter of Jew or Gentile, no respecter of female or male, no respecter of the boundaries that separate us, that God was the God who loved all people. This is Matthew doing research on the start of Jesus and going, oh my gosh, it was right there in the beginning. There are many and varied ways to God. Secondly, in the birth of Jesus, there were signs that the God of Abraham and Isaac and Rebekah and Sarah was a God who works in the hearts and minds of people all over the world and always has. Always has. It could be said, one commentator said that in Matthew's mind, God's embrace was enlarging. And then the commentator wrote, no, actually, it was that human beings' understanding of God's embrace was enlarging. Because God's embrace has always been longer than our arms, has always been greater than the reaches of our minds. They were coming to understand in a new way that God loved all the people of the world. Thirdly, there is no accounting for the hardness of human hearts. There is no accounting for this, my friends. The willingness of powerful people to subject people, their own people, to cruelty and death, to injustice beyond belief in order to maintain power. I'm going to say that sentence again, and you think about the news that you have heard over the past 3 months. And let it shock itself. There is no accounting for the hardness of human hearts, the willingness of people who are in power to subject their own people to cruelty and death in order to maintain power. And when that happens, my friends, when human beings do what they do, God will intervene in history to bring justice and love to bear. The greatest mystery to me in the world is not God. It is not. The greatest mystery to me in the world is us. It's us. The hardest thing, my friends, the hardest thing, look, you can say, oh my gosh, the story, like what, the Son of God born, there's a lot there to think about, there's a lot of hard things, the incarnation of God in Jesus Christ. Give me those problems any day over understanding us. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. I was struggling this week for some illustrations, and Laura said, why don't you go on the internet? I went, oh, okay, great. So I typed on the, what was the phrase? It was, my enemy saves me. My enemy saves me. And I passed over lots of stories. But there was one, this young woman, I'm sure she was young. She must have been about high school age. She was experiencing some of the kind of reversal and upside down of the behaviors of human beings. And she started out by saying, for about 2 years, I have been bullied and beaten by a girl in school. And she said, I have struggled with why she does it, and I don't know. She said, actually, sometimes she'll just walk past me in the hallway. She grabs me by the throat, she chokes me, and then she lets me go, and that's my normal life. She said, until last week, she said, something happened and I don't understand how to live now. And she said, I was standing on the corner waiting for the bus, and I had a piece of hard candy in my mouth, and it slipped back to the back of my throat, and I began to choke. And she said it was a serious choking, and the only person that was near me was the person who had been my bully. And she ran to me, and she put her arms around me. She said, at first I thought she was going to completely kill me. She saw her opportunity. She was going to take me out. I was already half dead. Now she could finish me. And instead, she began to say, oh my God, please breathe, breathe, breathe. And she gripped her and she did the Heimlich maneuver and she got the candy out. And she said, I fell to the ground. I was already ready to pass out. And here she is, my oppressor, who is bending over me, brushing my hair out of my face and asking, are you all right? And she said, I got up. I walked my way and she walked hers. And she said, here's my question. How am I supposed to relate to her now? I don't know what to do. I thought she wanted me dead, and she saved my life. Then the comments and the remarks, begin. It was like that. It was a revelation into the heart. One wise person wrote, sometimes there are things at work in us as human beings that when we cause pain and hurt to others, it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with us. Can life for humans really be that complicated? Can we really be that complex? You know we are. Friends, let us in our journey from our seats today to this table that is a sign of Jesus' life and ministry and death and resurrection. Let us at the beginning of this new year commit to a new listening, to a new level of understanding of God, but to a new level of understanding ourselves and the world as much as God will show us. Let our vows to examine ourselves. Let us commit to examine our own Herod-like ways that seek to cling to what we have and to preserve it at any cost. Let us come to the table of the Lord like we have seen for the very first time his rising in the east as the start of something new. I don't really care. I do care, but I don't really want to hear that much about your own New Year's resolutions. But I want, my prayer for you will be to hear and to accept a willingness to God to succeed in God's resolution for you in the new year. Let God make the resolution it show. You don't have to get down on your knees when you come to the communion table. You just have to come. Let it show as we dig up now the greatest and deepest sense of our own humility and offer it so that God's resolve for us in the new year might come true. If you want to know the words, you can take them right off the lips of Mary. Here I am, Lord.